Hello, sales reps for Beto Paredes Family Companies. I have something that you're going to absolutely love. If you're working with physicians, and if you've got doctor contacts, whether they be family practice, general practice, internal medicine, as well as a number of other taxonomies, there is a program and a medical device system that we have that is going to be just absolutely one of the best things you could be offering to the practices that you're working with. Now, if you've been in the field for some time, you may have heard of some of the competitors that we have that may be out there doing things similar to us, but I can tell you that what we're doing is very unique and one of the most powerful programs in the industry. I have got with me on the phone here Michael White. Michael, how are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Very good. Thank you for I'm doing fantastic. Thank you for joining me. So let's get into this, everybody. Now, just like all the other training, we do expect that you go through this and finish your testing before you get out in the field and start presenting the deck. Just like the other programs that we have, it's a similar opportunity where you present and you're selling them on a discovery to talk to one of our closers. Mike will be on the phone a lot of times. He's very, very well spoken. The other closers that we have on the closing desk for this program understand this device inside and out, and this is going to be something you're really going to make a lot of money with working with this. We'll talk a little bit more about commissions as we kind of get through this. But what we have is the most advanced ANS technology in the industry, and it's built to actually develop better patient care and to increase practice revenues for physicians. And as you guys already know, if you're working with physicians, they have a very difficult time and have had a very difficult time right now increasing practice revenues, a lot to do with the actual reimbursements being lowered and other challenges that practices have today. So we have the only full healthcare management system for ANS testing with a built-in proprietary smart engagement form billing profile. We call it P. Mike's going to talk more about that as we go. But this test, just so you know, it's an actual medical device test. We're done right there in their practice. This test takes 8 to 10 minutes, and we place the tech in the practice. So we actually take a professional that works for our company to run the test in the practice. So Mike, you've been doing this for quite some time, and you've been working with a number of doctors. Why don't you go ahead and talk to our sales guys a little bit about just the details of the actual device itself and what the physician is actually buying from us?
Well, what they're buying from us really is a full-blown system that does everything from testing to analysis of the tests to the determination of the coding that's necessary to do the billing. And it is all done for that practice. So there's no additional time constraints required. So often a practice who's struggling to get the income they want is lacking the time necessary because they're working so hard to really implement it and get it in place. And then when they do decide to go forward anyway, they're sorely disappointed because they just don't physically have enough time to keep up with the new increased required times. As an example, the average report may take 5 to 7 minutes, maybe as much as 10 minutes to evaluate. Then you've got to create an encounter form or a super bill. You've got to prepare chart notes. You've got to do all these things as a doctor. Once you've brought this equipment in, paid for it, got the test completed, and now you're asked as a doctor to spend way more time than you used to do. That's one of the biggest problems out there. Our system eliminates that with PEACE. PEACE is a full engagement system that literally takes the test, evaluates it for the doctor, establishes based on all the markers within the test, the evaluation for the encounter form or the super bill. It propagates the super bill for them and gives them the necessary recommendations without any input as to diagnosis or pre-diagnosis or family history or personal history, and allows the doctor then to quickly and effectively simply edit that. Some of the best writers in the world become editors because they can write so well they can edit everybody else's work. Well, a doctor doesn't have the time to do these reports, but they can sure edit them. They have the background, the expertise, and all of the necessary credentials to do so. In fact, they are required to do that. So by doing so, we're enabled to put our equipment into a doctor's practice without any additional time constraints by virtually any of their personnel, with the exception of the billing department, who's obviously going to increase the volume of billing that's being done on one of the most highly lucrative parts of the system of the industry that's ever been out there. So that's really what we do. We save them time, we save them money, and we give them a tremendous additional amount of billing and success.
Now, that Mike's drawing in everyone, what makes us different. What we have that the doctor is going to be able to use for the billing, obviously, is an incredible device that's built for preventative medicine. And so, again, he kind of brought up a lot of very important points concerning the difficulty a lot of times that any physician's practice has in engaging an actual new technology in their practice. A lot of that has to do with not wanting it to disrupt the actual flow of the office because they're already so busy. And we have the medical device that will increase their revenue as well as greatly increase their patient care and the outcomes of their patients that they really need. They really need this device. And that's one thing, being in this industry for a while myself, I've come to learn over time is that physicians are really needing to actually get into a more advanced environment. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that going on to the next slide. So our ANS medical device will revolutionize the practice for the physician. Preventative medicine is becoming the focus of CMS and all the payers. Now you can move this to the forefront of the practice. With our full service program, your time is focused on reading the patient report and we do the rest. And that's a little bit of what Mike was talking about. This is good medicine. This is an important thing to know. This is actually really good for the patients that are in the practice. It's good for the doctor and the relationship that they have and the overall population health management programs that they have, and the foundation of a strong wellness program to greatly benefit their patients. So no other system in the ANS industry. So our ANS system is one of the best in the industry. And it gives much more detailed data than a lot of the other systems that are out there, and it's extremely accurate. So there's actually 5 FDA-approved technologies in this device, and it's covered and reimbursed by most insurance companies. Tell me, Michael, what exactly does this equipment look for? Let's go to the next slide and kind of get a list here. And why don't you go through this with us?
Well, what it does, Beta, is it analyzes heart attack risk, heart rate variability risk, and issues around the inability for the heart to maintain proper electrical stability and heart rhythm, cardiac output to body surface area. So if the heart is not pumping enough to give the necessary oxygen and other nutrients to the body, that's a big issue. Abnormal LDL cholesterols, which leads to peripheral artery disease, atherosclerosis, and so many other issues. Insulin resistance, which of course is a key factor in diabetes and prediabetes. Other diabetes complications like neuropathy, small fiber, large fiber, neuropathy of the heart. There's a whole series of different areas within that. Physical and mental stress and fatigue, which can be caused from all of these different diseases or can just simply be a contributing factor to many of the problems that a patient has because they can't maintain or control the stress that they have. Stroke, of course, being another major issue out there. Angiotensin activity, which very few people really ever see or understand. That's a hormone that when it's active in the body, it can increase blood pressure, and more importantly, it can create salt buildup in the kidneys, which can lead to kidney stones and other issues. Then there's atherosclerosis. When people look at peripheral vascular disease, which is the next item shown there, they don't realize that that's the interior of the artery clogging, and there's a lot of constriction within the interior of the artery. But if on top of that, the artery wall has extensive stiffness, which is atherosclerosis, that is a major problem in combination with peripheral vascular disease. Then you have endothelial dysfunction, which isn't listed here, by the way, but in the endothelial dysfunction, which is basically the swelling of the arterial walls. If you have all 3 of these different things, that makes it far worse than just peripheral artery disease. Then, of course, you've got impaired glucose intolerance, which is another factor in diabetes and prediabetes. And then the nerve damage, which is the result of the neuropathies that most patients get when they're diabetic, because of their body's inability to get enough oxygen circulating throughout the system. And then that leads, of course, to obesity. And obesity comes so many times from the body's inability to control its insulin resistance and its glucose intolerance. And so what happens is the body's constantly starving. And as you starve from all of this increased insulin resistance issue and the impaired glucose tolerance issues, you get more hungry, you eat more, and you can't control your weight. And then the body doesn't process the fat out of the cells like it's supposed to because of diabetes and other issues surrounding that. And then, of course, there are so many other things that this equipment establishes in the area of medical necessity for other in-depth patient testing, things that you would normally miss, like heart rate variability and things like that.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you so much for explaining that. Michael, there are 8 major essential risk factors that determine these potential diseases in the body. What are they?
Well, Beto, the first is autonomic nervous system dysfunction, which is a real foundation for determining diabetes and heart disease and other metabolic disorders. Then you have, of course, insulin resistance, which is a key factor in prediabetes and diabetes with patients. Endothelial dysfunction is basically the problems that revolve around arteries, both large, medium, and small in the body. It establishes whether there's swelling, there's inflammation, there's other issues in those arteries that you would normally not see without extensive testing. Then you have pseudomotor dysfunction, which is basically establishing neuropathies, circulatory disorders, nerve damage, etc. Then you have cardiac autonomic neuropathy, which does the same for the heart and the cardiovascular system itself. 2 completely different areas of neuropathy, both critical to the survival of a patient in life. In addition to that, you have cardiometabolic risk. That's things like peripheral artery disease, atherosclerosis, and endothelial dysfunction in combination, and how they affect the heart's ability to pump enough oxygen, provide enough nutrients, and do the things it needs to do. It also establishes that risk for hidden issues that we discussed earlier, like stroke, heart attack, those types of things that are the hidden killers in this world today. And then we have small fiber neuropathy, which is basically the condition of the small to medium-sized arteries in the body. And that's, of course, identified in atherosclerosis and also in peripheral artery disease, and then in the larger arteries as cardiac autonomic neuropathies. And then we have, finally, cardiovascular disease. And cardiovascular disease is a combination of all these different areas, from cardiac autonomic neuropathy to cardiometabolic risk factors to small fiber neuropathy, a whole series of different issues, and how the overall cardiovascular system is able to cope with all the different issues that are going on within each one of these areas. Because some people, as you know from the past, no matter what they do, they seem to be able to survive all the things they shouldn't be doing and be very healthy, where others, very little affects their ability to be healthy and they become very sick very easily. That's all involved around this cardiovascular disease potential, small fiber neuropathy, cardiometabolic risk, cardiac autonomic neuropathy, pseudomotor dysfunction, endothelial dysfunction, insulin resistance, and autonomic nervous system dysfunction, and how their body is handling it. When you're younger, it's real easy. When you get older, it becomes less able to handle the risk. And some people take a lot longer to get there. Some people take a lot shorter period of time to get there. But they all get there eventually.
So wonderful. Thank you for explaining that. So as you can see, there is a tremendous value for a physician to be able to have this device operating in their practice. So here's just some of the actual screens that the device has that allows them to score the information and analyze the information immediately. Can you talk to me a little bit about what's available to the doctor right there at point of analysis?
Sure. First of all, when you start with the summary page, which is the top left, this gives you all 8 risk factors and tells you an overall evaluation of the risk to the patient in each of these different areas. And then the very last one, the PTG-CVD, gives you an analysis of how effectively the body is handling all of these issues. So in reality, as an example on this one summary page, this patient's got a lot of serious issues because green is good, yellow is abnormal, and orange is high. Well, he's got high throughout almost every area in his body, but yet his PTG-CVD capability is just abnormal, which means the body's really fighting well to try to maintain against all of these issues that this patient is dealing with. The slide on the right, pseudomotor, tells us about the neuropathy potential for the patient and the nerve damage risk. As you can see on this one, green is clear up around 800 for ESRNO, and yet this is down at 394. This patient's obviously got neuropathy. ESRL is peripheral distal neuropathy, which is a more complex neuropathy. And both of those contribute to nerve damage. And as you can see, one look by the doctor sees this patient should be normal at 1,230 round figures, and they're at 563. This person's got nerve damage. It's going to start showing up, if it hasn't already, in pain, discomfort, and other issues. And then you start looking at heart rate variability. On the lower left section there, this talks about how the patient's heart responds in the area of rhythm and electrical stability to different types of pressure that's applied during the test. R&R intervals during the Valsalva, where you plug your nose and hold your breath. Standing at the end of the test, which surprisingly enough, a simple level from sitting to standing can show up dynamic important information. And then to beat evaluation, which is at the very beginning of the test on a baseline and how it compares to these other three. And then finally, the deep breathing. Breathing in slowly and out slowly, matching the clock at 5-minute intervals for 30 seconds. When you're done with that, this system can quickly and effectively evaluate heart rate variability issues in combination with the pulse oximeter. Then to the right, you have, in very simple terms, an evaluation of peripheral artery disease, atherosclerosis. Your overall condition of your arteries are identified here very quickly. A doctor can look right down to the PTG pattern right on the lower right. If it's a 2, 3 or above, it's abnormal. If it's 4 or 5, it's high. And if you look at the chart to the left, the doctor takes a quick look. He already knows this, but he can show the patient. Type 4, that's what your artery looks like. We got to clean that up. And a lot of it's due to things like your cholesterol levels and other things that are out of range for you. Also, many other functions. So if you look to the right, you see RI, which is atherosclerosis. You see AIPTG. That is the marker for elevated LDL cholesterol levels. The doctor can see this very quickly. But it still goes back to the same thing. He's got to read this report. There's 7 pages. And for him to look for all of this in combination, he's going to spend about 5 to 7 minutes doing it. That's one of the biggest issues out there, is giving them the ability to edit this, as we talked about earlier in the presentation, by having us do all this work for them, and all they do is review it.
Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit more about the PEACE program in just a moment here. So that's great. So this is just a few screens, everyone, of a very thorough analytical report that's available to the physician immediately after the test has been accomplished. As you can see, it's very graphical. The information is easy for the doctor to read through and be able to score, especially after they've done a number of tests, very quickly, any of the issues that we had talked about previously. So let's talk about something a little bit more exciting for the doctor, right? This is an opportunity for a physician to increase the practice revenues. So many of our practices are seeing 15,000 plus a month increase in their practice revenues. And based on their patient count, their payer mix, and specific demographic area, we can actually run a calculation that will show exactly how much revenue the doctor will be generating. So we have that if the physician is interested in speaking with us at the discovery desk. That's one of the things that we're going to offer them on that call. So you can let them know that we've got a calculator that will actually allow us to give them a projection of what they may be able to make in their practice. So even if you've engaged an ANS program before, there is no one in the industry that can offer you what we do. Mike, can you tell us a little bit about the experiences that we've had with physician practices that may have had an ANS program before and what you've been able to accomplish for them?
Sure. As in so many pieces of hardware, as we put it, in the industry, so many doctors buy all this different product. They're turned on to increasing revenue and getting excited about being able to do more for their patients. And then reality sinks in. And quite frankly, they don't have the knowledge and the time to sit down and do the types of things they need to get the best possible results from that equipment. So often they get put in a closet or they're not used to the level they should be. We can go into any practice that already has any type of ANS system. Doesn't matter what it is, doesn't matter what brand. We can evaluate the report. We can do a complete technician-assisted program just like this one for those practices and provide them with finished encounter forms that will enable them to dramatically increase the effectiveness of that equipment that they currently can't use. And it doesn't cost them a dime to begin with.
Yeah, that's a great point. So to get into the device and the program with us initially, there is a lease involved, okay? And you're not going to want to be speaking with the physician more directly about that. That's actually one of the reasons to get them onto the phone with us at the closing desk, is to discuss the terms and the potential payment plans that we would have for the device in their practice, which is very affordable. But if they already have a device and have been in a program before, we can actually go in and take what we do and what we know, what we understand, which is different and better than anyone in the industry, and actually get them back into the program and get them making the money in their practice. So other practices that have attempted to bill ANS unsuccessfully are now working with us. We've done this a number of times already, and if that's something that you run into, because although this ANS device is rare enough that a majority of the physicians you talk to will not have implemented a program before, when you run into the ones that do, that's even more exciting to a degree. You're going to want to get them on the phone, get them a discovery call set up with us so we can speak with them.
And Beto, there's some real good examples of this. I mean, we have so many clients. I'll give you just a couple of examples. We had one practice, not a big practice, probably 25, 30 patients a day. Single family medicine doctor in the South Carolina area. Bought a piece of equipment, spent a year making literally no money whatsoever on this equipment. Literally none. And finally came to us in desperation through a referral from another individual and said, what can you do to help me? Well, 3 months later, they're making $25,000 to $30,000 a month for this equipment because of our program. They incorporated everything we did. And in addition to we don't just go in and put a tech in. We don't just go in and do your tests for you so you can evaluate them. We work with your billing department. We work with your EMS software. We create templates and we establish a relationship that enables the doctor to more effectively practice medicine without having to spend the time to do it. That's just one example. We have another group in Arizona were struggling. They had literally done hundreds and hundreds of tests and seen no revenues from it. Today, that group has expanded into 7 different offices and are bringing doctors in all over the area. And they're doing testing for others as well as themselves, and they're generating in the neighborhood of $35,000 to $40,000 a month. They failed for a year and a half in multiple attempts with multiple groups out there to do the same type of service that they thought they were getting from them that they couldn't do. That's just a couple of examples of so many out there that are just like that. It's a real tremendously powerful position with extensively good residual incomes that come from being able to help those people put that equipment to good use.
And I can tell you right now, that's one of the biggest reasons that I'm working with Mike. So I've been in this industry for a little bit myself. I've seen the struggle that practices have had with their billing. And when I saw Mike's program, which we're going to talk about now, I was absolutely just on board and excited about it. And it's one of the reasons why we brought it to you. So we've got a program that we call PEACE. It's the Patient Encounter Compilation and Execution Software. Medical necessity is developed through our proprietary software for the provider. The encounter form generated by PEACE is then quickly reviewed, extremely time efficient. So we actually get engaged with the practice in part of the business model that most of the other ENS companies are not getting involved, if any of them. And not only do we get involved at that level, it is one of the reasons we're so successful as a company working with the practices. The Advanced Wellness Solution ANS device and Smart Engagement Form technology, they will transform the practice for the physician. And not just because of its amazing device, but because of the PEACE program. There are other devices on the market, but none of them give you the incredible amount of analytical data or the billing profile support that we offer. Produce incredible results for your patients in a super bill that is pre-populated with your exact billing requirements to get reimbursed. So I'm going to let Mike talk a little bit more about PEACE here in just a moment, but I do want to mention that there are other training videos that are required for you to finish your training on, where Mike talks about the actual PEACE program more specifically, and it's also available on the website for you to share with the physicians. But if you could just talk a little bit about PEACE and maybe what the main points to point out when they're showing them this slide, Mike, would be.
Sure. Well, There's a number of different areas. First of all, is time. Doctors do not have enough time in a day to get their jobs done. Virtually none I've ever met do. There's rare exceptions, but traditionally they don't. And if they add some new project, it's going to make it worse. And that's one of the big problems that's out there. Peace eliminates all of that and puts them into that editing position we discussed earlier, which saves them a tremendous amount of time per patient. In addition to that, our billing experts, and we have a very well-established billing group that assists us in determining within each given marketing area exactly what particular ICD-10 codes are paid on our particular CPT codes, which are your 95923, 95943, 95921, your 95922s, 24s, and then, of course, your cardiometabolic codes, which are 93923 and 93922. We teach that doctor and their staff and their billing groups how to effectively do this, and then we provide them with encounter forms that are based on the LCDs within that particular area that the doctor's in. Because every different area in the country applies an answer in an ICD-10 code differently than many of the others do. Example, up in the New York region, there's an I-73.89 that identifies arterial sclerosis. Well, in South Carolina, it's an I-73.9. And if you use a 173.89, it's not going to get paid. But if it accidentally gets paid, which happens once in a while, they may come back if you ever get audited and do a clawback and say, that's not in our system, so you shouldn't have been paid on that. Those are the kinds of things we completely eliminate. We give the doctor basically peace of mind, which is why we named our system PEACE, Patient Encounter Compilation and Execution Software.
So as you can see here, the codes are listed. You can share these with the physician, and this is a big deal. Okay, when it comes down to many of the dialogue that I've had talking to physicians, you'd be surprised at how immediately, number one, they understand to a degree what the ANS testing does. So they're physicians. For the most part, that's going to be a fairly quick conversation. A lot of times they'll switch right over to, well, I need to send the information to my biller. I've got to see if these codes are actually going to work. And the struggle that has happened is ANS is such a new industry that many billing companies are unclear about what the billing profile should be. With our program, and unlike any other program or system out there at this point, all of that difficulty is gone. The time required to actually put the super bill together or to fill out the encounter form is done automatically in our system. We're the only company that actually has this program in the country. And so that's one of the biggest reasons why, even if there's a failing practice that's tried to do ANS, they're a great conversation for us. And for the new practices, obviously, it's going to get into a billing discussion, potentially even early. And so you want to let them know that, hey, that's actually the most exciting part about getting on the discovery call. Okay, if you've talked to people about ANS billing before, I guarantee you're going to get new information about how to actually bill appropriately in our program, and all of the time that you would have to take, that 10 extra minutes per encounter form that you would normally have to put in, we do all of that work for you. All you're doing after that is simple editing with the assurance that all of the coding is done correctly. That's a big deal. It's incredibly good for their patients. It's one of the best programs for population health management in the preventative model currently in the space, but we make sure the doctor is appropriately set up so that they can bill and they can get paid. Because one of the most important things, obviously, for practices is that this is a tremendous opportunity for revenue. If they have the right patient count and payer mix and they're of the appropriate taxonomy, this is going to be very, very good for them. And that's important for me to explain to you real quick. When you're in the back office, when you put a lead in for AWS, there's additional information that is going to be needed. So do make sure that you take a look at that. And I had mentioned those, the payer mix, the patient count, the exact taxonomy of the doctor. These things are going to be very important for us to be able to score. And you'll see there's also identification for separating whether it's a cash payer, commercial, Medicare, or Medicaid. So just make sure that you do ask those questions before you actually put a lead in for discovery, so that we can have a very specific conversation. And by putting that information in, we're going to be able to actually put the calculator together ahead of time to be able to talk to them about the potential revenues they have in their practice.
Well, that's a very good point, Beto. And The ROI is only as good as the information that's put together based on each area, and more importantly, the success of doctors within each area. And we're one of the unique companies out there that literally evaluate complete EOB positioning in different parts of the country, states, counties, even boroughs. And we establish what the real rates are out there that are being paid on each of these individual codes by all the different carriers, whether they may be Aetna, Cigna, Medicare, Medicaid, any of those groups. We do a compilation and an overall average, and we provide all of that information to you on one ROI sheet that not just doesn't give you this is how much you're going to make this year. Here's the codes. Here's what we've seen in success. Here's what's being done right now. These are the results. And here is what happens if you get this many patients, 10 a day, 5 a day, or whatever it may be, is going to generate in revenue for you. And it's extremely accurate in comparison to any other system that's out there because it's based on real data from real clients.
So in conclusion here, remember, it's very important for you to review in our back office the actual discovery, put the physician information in, make sure it's accurate, and you are going to have to get the taxonomy of the practice. And so we have the taxonomies of the practices that actually qualify for our program listed right here. So physician taxonomies that will qualify for our system are family medicine, general practice, primary care, cardiology, internal medicine, pain management within an integrated practice, which means they must have another doctor or NPI integrated into the pain practice that qualifies in this list. Endocrinology, DOs, OBGYNs, multi-specialty groups, orthopedic surgeons, and of course, pain management groups with an MD of proper taxonomy as it is listed here. So you want to make sure that you understand the taxonomy of the physician. And you also, again, want to make sure that before you enter the lead, that you get the patient count and the payer mix correct. So you can enter that stuff into the discovery call. So when we have the meeting with the physician, we can really understand their practice ahead of time and give them really good information about what this will do for their practice revenues. So Mike, is there anything else you can give advice for the reps on this initial opportunity, with knowing that what they're doing is just setting up a presentation to talk with us here at the closing desk?
Well, yeah, I do. And very simply, what we're giving you is a lot of detail, a lot of information, and a lot of explanation. If you try to do that to the doctor and you don't make this super, super simple, they will absolutely not respond. They're already so busy, they don't have the time to want to learn or understand new things. And they're so afraid of making another mistake with equipment and other things they bought. Keep it simple. We do all the work for you. We protect you. We give you peace of mind. And we make you a lot more money without a lot more work. That's really what you're trying to show them.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for spending some time with me. And reps, this is a good one. Okay, if you need more information, you want to get on to more training calls after you finish your training, we're more than available. We'd like to see you get out there and start entering some doctors. Mike, have a great rest of your day.